They are doing separate presentations, but it's going to be on the same subject. The first speaker is Mary Jo Fetterly. Mary Jo is a passionate about personal development as well as diversity and inclusion, especially after becoming paralyzed 18 years ago while having two young teens. Mary Jo is certified in energy anatomy with Carolyn Myss and has a master's in Tantra from Rod Steiker. Her current role as a certified health coach and yoga and mindfulness teacher therapist highlights her diverse skills that straddle from human relations to designing and writing programs that translate ideas into reality. Mary Jo's position with the University of Toronto has involved building the frameworks, then administering coaching and mindfulness programs to the disabled SCI community, in addition to creating and building businesses such as cafes, yoga studios, and national training programs. She is a University of Waterloo student in social work and social development. And afterwards, we are going to have Ryan Yellowlees, who is a registered clinical counselor specializing in physical disability and physical illness counseling. His counseling approach is derived from his master's of counseling degree and his lived experience living with a chronic illness. He works from a disability justice, humanistic, person-centric, and strength-based perspectives. So Mary Jo, we're going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. That's a mouthful. I have to shorten that. Hello, everybody, and really great to meet you and be here with you. It's nice to see faces that I know and also ones that I don't know. So welcome and thanks for joining us. I'll start right off in terms of looking at mental health. And I think the thing that Ryan said right off the top is this difficult conundrum that a lot of people with an incomplete SCI have to manage and deal with. And that is this idea of comparative analysis of, this is my injury, someone else has got this other one. Where do I fit? How do I fit in? What do I do when I don't fit in? And when I feel like an imposter, when I have stuff that's going on in my life that people double, second guess me on, or that I second guess myself on. And I think it can create a really animostic relationship with the self and also with what you have to do, because we all know that someone that has an incomplete and that is ambulatory or almost maybe trying to get ambulatory or in any way, shape, form incomplete and on that continuum, there's constant information coming in from the brain and nervous system because of the incompleteness. And what we do know about the nervous system are a few things that are important for us to remember, I think, in the ambulatory or almost ambulatory or incomplete illness or condition, is that information is really tantamount to pay attention to. And yet that information often is really sometimes too much. And sometimes that information is deciphered by the brain and our kind of our memory, which is the biggest part of our brain that works in terms of our day-to-day awareness. And it's always making associations and honestly, making comparisons. That's kind of the job of the brain. And especially the neocortex, the part of the brain that's kind of the lower mind. So in yoga and in most of the Buddhist and sort of meditative philosophies, we look at the nature of the mind. And so we want to see, just like, the nature of the nervous system, we want to see, what does the mind do in its daily waking consciousness, and what serves me and what doesn't serve me, especially if I'm having to deal with a really wacky nervous system, kind of an injury that's difficult in our culture to understand, and also with symptoms that may not be very enjoyable and that make me feel maybe like I don't really like my body or I don't like the situation I'm in. So I don't know if any of you fall into that category, but if you smile and go kind of nod your head, I'll know that I'm somewhat on the right track. And in all those situations, it's the mind, really, the interface of the mind interpreting either the responses from the body or interpreting people's judgments or people's, opinions, or interpreting what you also have told yourself about yourself, which is our belief systems. And so there's a a really important understanding that comes through those traditions, those ancient traditions that teach us mindfulness and Buddhism and meditation. And it's that we can actually kind of look at the mind like a functioning organ. And our awareness is actually not the functioning of the mind. It's not the judgment. It's not the comparative analysis that our judgment mind does. It's not the mind going binary and trying to make zeros and dots out of it, zeros and ones out of everything it sees, which is really the job of our sort of waking consciousness in that sympathetic system. If it didn't do that, we'd be in trouble. However, when it does do that, and there isn't really a saber-toothed tiger in the room or any real threat, then we're also in trouble. So we have to teach the mind to, first of all, distinguish what is real information and important information to me to look at and what is not. And then we also have to teach it how to not only recognize, but then how to discern what to do with that information. So let's just take that saber-toothed tiger that just walked into the room in your mind, which could be a stimulus for any kind of trauma that you've ever experienced. And trauma is really important to understand as anything that dysregulates the nervous system. So it could be a happy situation, but all of a sudden my legs are bouncing and I've got clonus and I've got a new wave of spasticity. So even though that's good information coming in, it's not being disseminated in the nervous system in the way that we normally would have before our injury, because there isn't that gray matter right there to do that. It's going right into the kind of the primitive brain, the amygdala, the part of the brain that goes fight or flight. I better take care of that saber-toothed tiger, or I'm going to get the hell out of here. I'm going to freeze and stop everything. And so those three states are what lead to anxiety, are what lead to chronic pain, and also are what lead to a belief system that really keeps us in a place that we're not free and we're not responding to the sensory body in a way that's accepting and that's perceptive and that also can find the intuition of what to do. So after that long introduction, those are the practices of mindfulness, meditation, cognitive behavioral therapy, any stress reduction techniques, any of those things are going to teach you essentially how to first of all, perhaps ideally understand the nature of the mind and the nature of that, kind of constant barrage of information that's coming in that we kind of have to filter. And then it's also going to teach you how to begin to control that barrage, whether it's the anxiety thoughts, whether it's the comparative thoughts, oh, they're better than I can't do this, I wish I had that, or whether it's the anxiety related to the body symptoms that, oh, this feels terrible, I wish I didn't have to deal with that. So that's the beauty, the real beauty of practice. And it takes a bit of time, and people often, when they start doing any type of, kind of meditative practice, what happens is those thoughts get louder because you're focusing on them. So if there was pain before, you're going to notice it more. If there was a really, monkey brain mind going all over the map, you're going to notice that more. So we have to think about the nature of the mind. That'll give you the tools and the liberty to kind of meet all of what comes at us, including, the information that's good, and then be able to discern and actually put maybe even not a category, but put a name or a thought or a feeling or a sensation into context so that it doesn't rule you, you rule it. So it's really about that. It's really about you becoming the master of your mind and your thoughts, and not letting your thoughts, like a dog, a little puppy, take you on a wild walk leash down the road where you don't want to go. How many people need that? Pretty much all of us. I need it all the time, probably because I have a real monkey brain. And that was probably why I started meditation in the first place. So I'm going to give you a really short little practice that we're going to do. And this practice is so easy and simple. And I know Terry, she's mentioned to me before, she loves this. And that's just to close our eyes when we get comfortable. And I'm going to have you just focus on the sounds in the room. So all of the things that are coming through the Zoom lens, all of the things in the house or this apartment that you're in or wherever you are. So let's just get a little bit comfy. I've only got a few minutes left, and I'm going to show you how wonderful even a minute of this can be. So just hike your shoulders up and roll them back and down. And then do that again and inhale. Push back and release them as if you're kind of pulling taffy away from your ears. Down. One more time. Inhale big. And then let the upper arm bones and the shoulders move back toward the back of the chair where you are. And then let the elbows and the arm bones slide down. And then with your eyes closed or not, you can look down if they're not closed and just kind of keep them soft. And just allow yourself to just take a reading. So this is like a baseline. Where am I right now? What's the weather here? What's my predominant mood? What's my predominant sensory input from my body? What's my predominant list of things that the monkey brain's going through? Just look at it all. And then allow yourself to then take another breath or two, focusing on the breath. And this time when you focus on the breath, see if you can make the exhale longer than your inhale. So a nice inhale, slow and steady. And you notice there was a bit of sound on my exhale, maybe. You could do that too, just by imagining you're kind of exhaling through your mouth through a straw. You can open your lips a little bit and make the ah sound, almost as if you're letting air out of a tire. All of that tension releases. And now allow yourself to listen. Listen really big and wide. Let your listening lens go way out beyond the room you're in. Hearing the sounds of the street, perhaps, cars, children, whatever you might hear. Still maintaining that nice long exhale, still allowing the shoulders to be soft, the face to be calm and peaceful, maybe even a small smile on your lips. And keep focusing on the sounds you hear, but bring your aperture of awareness closer towards you. So just the sounds in the room you're in. So let the other ones fade out and let the loudest sounds be my voice, what you notice in your room that you're sitting in. You can also, if you want to stretch your aperture of awareness, not just to the sounds you hear in the room you're in, but perhaps to any sensory input from your body. Notice if the shoulders are tight or if they feel okay. Notice where there might be pain. Notice where there might be, maybe just a little energy kind of vortex that draws you in. And without changing it, without naming it, just notice. Oh, that's there. And then as you kind of get the barrage of thoughts coming in, this is stupid, I don't know about this, what is she talking about? Notice that. Where are those thoughts? What do they represent? Do they have a story, a belief? And then as I wrap up and allow Ryan to take over soon, I'm going to ask you to keep your eyes closed and begin to allow the awareness now to release the focus of all the sounds, not letting that go, obviously, because you'll still hear me, but now allowing yourself to imagine everything in your body releasing downward into the earth and grounding you on your exhales, just like an anchor kind of being let off of the edge of the ship. Exhale. Just feel that deepening grounding effect of your exhale. And then before we close, feel your whole body, wherever it is in space. If you're sitting, if you're lying, notice your position without opening your eyes. Notice all sensations without getting fixated on one. Notice your body's shape. Remember where you were sitting in the room and what the room looks like without opening your eyes. And take another breath before we all come back gently with bright eyes into the room that we share. And then notice how you feel when you come back. Is there a shift? Is there just a different tone or quality? Are your eyes open more? Do you see brighter colors? There's all sorts of possibilities. None of them are necessary, but all of them matter. So really we're noticing, and we're doing mostly in mindfulness is sharpening our pencil of awareness. And I thank you for playing along with me. Hopefully that shifted some of you and you felt that in the positive direction. And I'll turn it over to Ryan.
That was awesome, Mary Jo. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
We will jump into the next presentation. So for those that have questions, you can either just put them in the chat now or just wait for afterwards when we're going to have a general discussion. So without further ado, we are going to throw it to Ryan. I think we're going to start with and yeah, so we are going to be taking a break after the first presentation too. So we're going to start with Ryan's opening video, and then we'll let him take it from here.
Hello everybody, my name is Ryan Yellowlees. I am a registered clinical counselor who specializes in physical disability counseling and physical illness counseling. Thank you everyone for joining my presentation about disability, ableism, and mental wellness. Models of disability. Persons with physical disabilities face discrimination because of society's deeply ingrained medical model of disability perspective. The medical model of disability assumes that people with disabilities are broken and need to be fixed, like a machine that needs to be repaired or discarded if unable to fix. It presumes able bodies to be the desired norm and disability something to be pathologized, and being disabled is viewed as an unfortunate tragedy. It also views disability as something that exists within the person. The medical model of disability perpetuates ableism, which is bias, prejudice, and discrimination towards people with disabilities. Ableism is based on the belief in practices that people with disabilities are less valuable than people without disabilities. People, friends, and family blindly accept the medical model of disability because society has brainwashed them into their heads. To counter the medical model of disability and ableism, by embracing the social model of disability that states that the physical and social environments cause disabilities. Therefore, the environment and people's limited perspectives are disabled rather than the person born with or who has acquired a health condition or disability. The concept of disability is a socially constructed, created by the barriers and obstacles the society puts in place to prevent persons with impairments from fully participating in society, which establishes a hierarchy of power in society. Strategies for dealing with disability denying statements. Sometimes friends, family and colleagues downplay, deny, or pretend your disability doesn't exist, which sends the message that your disability identification makes them uncomfortable, which usually occur during conversations about accessibility, disability, or illness. Receiving comments or statements like "you do not look disabled" or "are you sure you are disabled?" and other disability denying comments are their attempts to deny your disability identity. This can be particularly harmful to your mental health because it denies who you are and makes you question your own identity, especially when disability denying comments come from family and friends. One way to deal with this is to have a meaningful conversation about how receiving the disability denying comments made you feel. Also, have a conversation that disability is part of being human, and everyone has a disability because everyone in this world is limited in some way. For example, having difficulty with math, having a particular mindset or perspective, having a terrible singing voice, wearing glasses, being left-handed, having a broken arm, or being limited in some way could all be considered a disability. Mention that disability is on a continuum of a level of abilities where everyone has different degrees of abilities with no arbitrary cutoffs of disabled or non-disabled. Another way to deal with the denial of your disability identity, especially from friends and family, by saying statements like, "My disability is part of who I am, and if you cannot accept that, you are not respecting who I am." If family and friends are uncomfortable with your disability, unwilling to understand your point of view, and discuss about your disability, you should set healthy boundaries and consider limiting access to your life, because being around somebody who constantly denies your disability identity is toxic for mental health. Having a disability is part of who you are, and you have a right to feel proud of your identity as a member of the disability community, regardless of what anyone says. Dealing with ableist microaggressions. A microaggression is a comment or behavior that subtly and often unconsciously or unintentionally express a prejudiced attitude towards a member of a marginalized group. Friends, family, and coworkers and strangers often commit microaggressions without being aware of it. It is especially damaging when friends and family commit microaggressions towards you. Examples of ableist microaggressions are comments like "you are an inspiration," "confined to a wheelchair," using words like "cripple," "handicap," and "normal," or giving assistance without permission. To deal with microaggressions, you need to acknowledge that a microaggression has occurred, make a decision if it is worth it to respond, think about how you will respond, and make a verbal response. You could respond by telling the person how the microaggression affected you and made you feel, or explain why the microaggression is offensive. Strategies for coping with stress and ableism. Dealing with ableist comments, discrimination, microaggressions, and denial of your disability identity can be exhausting and can have a significant impact on your mental health and well-being. The fatigue of constantly dealing with others who treat us unfairly or differently due to having a disability can lead to depression, anxiety, suicidality, difficulty sleeping, and other effects on mental health and well-being. If you are struggling with your mental health, reach out for support so you do not need to struggle alone. Talk to a trusted friend or family member who is willing to listen to your struggles, support you, and understand you. Another way to get support is by joining a peer support groups with people with similar disabilities that can provide you with a sense of belonging and safety. Having a sense of community and belonging is extremely important for our mental well-being. Additionally, you can also get support by receiving counseling from a counselor or social worker who specializes in chronic illness or disability that you are comfortable working with. Engaging in disability activism or disability justice by getting involved by joining a disability activism forum, disability advocacy organization, and fight for your disability rights. This can be a great way to redirect negative energy into something productive and meaningful to pursue. Witnessing or experiencing disability advocacy victories is exhilarating, which makes you excited to engage in future disability activism when possible. An excellent way to cope with stress is by engaging in mindfulness practices, which occur in various forms. Journaling your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, especially when you have a difficult day, it helps with emotion regulation, processing your feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Understanding yourself better and reflecting on your life. Gratitude journaling is another way to practice mindfulness by writing in a journal things that you're grateful for and positive things that have happened to you. Gratitude journaling helps you to be more positive and have more happiness. Practicing mental wellness. Practicing grounding techniques like controlled breathing, visualization, and meditation can help decrease anxiety, stress, promote relaxation, improve your ability to be present in the moment, improve your sleep quality, and decrease blood pressure. An example of a grounding technique is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique, which helps you calm down when you are anxious or angry. It involves identifying 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Practicing self-care means taking care of yourself by doing things that promote physical and mental well-being. Getting enough sleep and doing your best to keep a consistent sleep schedule, exercise regularly, drink enough water, and eating healthy is good for your physical health and significantly impacts your mental health. You can also practice self-care by doing relaxing activities like doing your favorite hobby, playing video games, doing a puzzle, reading a book, watch a movie, pet your dog or cat, socializing with friends and family, spending time at the park, or be in nature, or watching a sunset, etc., which are great ways to manage and deal with daily stress. The consequences of not fitting in self-care into your schedule can be low energy, burnout, less patience, and poor mental and physical health.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that. So I think at this point, we will open the floor to anybody that has any questions, comments. It doesn't have to be a direct question. It could be just a conversation of your experiences. Yeah, Mary Jo, I was just curious. So you were saying how you kind of need to do these sorts of things all the time, that you have a monkey in your brain. How do you find when you know you need a refresher, we need to kind of like check yourself, like before things spiral? I don't know if that's the right word, but
Yeah, it's a great question. So our most important input in that regard is the body, because the body doesn't lie. The mind will lie to us about our sensations and about what we need and don't need, but the body doesn't. And so if we can learn to, in the moment, tap into that right away when we feel it, we usually will be able to mitigate the anxiety build or the pain build that might be forthcoming, that would come if we don't pay attention to it. And then we can resource it. So we actually have choice. Once that body sensation or whatever it is that's kind of causing our attention and causing the monkey brain, once it gets into its, kind of mousetrap, or what do you call it, the wheel that spins, or the rabbit hole, once it's going in that direction, it's really hard to stop it. So for me, I have to do little bouts of mindfulness all day long, rather than sitting for 20 minutes, half an hour. I really take 5-minute bites, and I do them kind of every 30 minutes, half hour. And then I don't get to the point where I'm at the point of no return. And that's really just a pause to become present. And when I'm present, I can tap in and go, oh, I should have drunk enough water. It's like Ryan was saying just a minute ago about all the self-care techniques. Really, that's the first step in self-care, is just really being conscious enough to not get so inundated with, the material world, work, the life, and all that thing, to forget about this important interface, the body, because that's how we have to be conscious and productive and be in the world. And so we just don't give it a lot of bandwidth. We don't value that input, that sensory input from the body enough, or we have a argument with it. And honestly, we can't argue with reality. You can try to say fuck off, spasms, or I'm sorry, get away, or whatever it might be. You can get angry about it, but that's not going to help. That's just going to make it worse. So you want to befriend the body. You want to befriend whatever it might be, that monkey brain that's causing that sort of spiral on the treadmill. There's the word. And you want to befriend it before it gets to be chronic, or before it gets to be this massive snowball that's way too big, then you can't hardly, break it. So that answer your question, Ryan?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have a question in the chat that's open for anybody, you or Ryan. What are some tips for starting self-care? They find what works for me into a busy schedule where there is not much time to do an activity. So I think it's just a question of, if you're very busy with work, personal life, what are some tips for actually just motivating yourself to start self-care?
Well,
I'll start now. I'll pass it to you, Ryan. But I don't know how many of you did that mindfulness thing that I led you through, but that was less than a minute. Less than a minute. And I don't know how many of you noticed that there could have been a shift there in just that short time frame. And to me, that's the first thing in self-care, is really being pausing to become present, because we can get really caught up in the activity of the day and social media, whatever else it might be. But that pause is my first step. Ryan, over to you. What do you think?
Well, I guess like just starting small, you can start with something maybe 30 seconds and then build up from there day
Great.
by day, increase the time, or even eating healthy. It's like just the little things, checking in on yourself every once in a while. Like when you're feeling your heart racing, ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And kind of just do like a body scan of self check and think of why you're feeling that way and just be kind to yourself is another one. Like if you're having a bad day, don't beat yourself up. Show love to yourself is probably an easy first step anyone could try. And just like writing like things you're grateful that happened could take like 5 seconds to write down that you're grateful happened that day. Or like just do journaling. If you're upset, it could just be 5 minutes. So just like the little things can add up over time.
Awesome. Jolene, you have a question? I think you're
One to Mary Jo and about the mindfulness. I recently learned the benefits of hypnotherapy, which is another way. It would fit in the category of mindfulness, but I can't have any anesthesia for any procedure at all. And so I've been seeing a psychologist and learning the different techniques of hypnosis. So last month I underwent surgery at Kelowna General Hospital using hypnotherapy. I'm very grateful to Interior Health to allow that. And I learned through that hypnotherapy is a venue that I suggest the people with spinal cord injuries pursue as a means of learning. I didn't know that I could do things about my impaired venous return, sympathetic dysfunction through hypnotherapy. And my second comment is to Ryan, which I really appreciated what you had to say. I think you hit it all for many of us. The problem that I find is not with my family or friends, but the discrimination, the profound discrimination that people with spinal cord injuries face when we try to get care or get a job or that kind of thing. It's more or less like, why don't you just go in a hole and die? And we all run into people like that. And so it's good to know that Spinal Cord BC is, actively advocating, within to make changes. But it's something that limits all of us, is that social, in the medical world, that limits us so severely of trying to get ahead of where we should right from the get-go. Okay, thank you to both the speakers. I think you're both fantastic, offered a great deal.
You just asked good questions and made some great comments too. So I would say, to answer your question about hypnotherapy, absolutely, bravo. Hypnotherapy, I mean, is just, it's mindfulness with a bit of a augment into a particular direction that is really, it's basically working with the subconscious mind on autosuggestion, which is really, part of what we're doing in mindfulness. We're isolating out the parts of the brain that are the monkey brain, which is exactly what we do in hypnotherapy. And then we're taking that kind of that viewfinder, and we're letting, the cognitive part of the brain that, that the gray matter that does the zeros and the ones, be okay. That's what it likes to do, and that's what it has to do. And of course, we can't stop that. And so in hypnotherapy and in mindfulness or meditation, what we're doing is we're actually cultivating the super consciousness that's just a bit, in a different level than that zeros and ones binary brain, the left and right brain. And you mentioned the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. And for the most part, and there was another question about neuroplasticity, for the most part, when we're functioning day to day, we're in the sympathetic nervous system, which is very, much related to fight or flight. I got to take action. I got to do my, binary thing and analyze and do associations of everything I see, every moment, everything that's coming in. I want to make sure I know what it is. that's its, that's a protective mechanism and it's an important function of the sympathetic brain. However, it also, is the part of the brain that's attached to memory, that's attached to the memory of trauma, the memory of whatever it might be. 2 seconds ago, someone, was angry at you, whatever. So that is registered back here in the primitive brain. It doesn't have a brain, just like, my spinal cord at the neck, I'm a 4 complete. I can't give, efferent information to my spastic toe through that sympathetic system. I have to go through the parasympathetic system. And that's where you guys are really, having to tap into. That's what mindfulness is. That's what hypnosis is. It's tapping into that parasympathetic brain, away from that fight or flight mechanism, the primitive brain, and it's giving you tools to work with there, be it hypnosis, be it mindfulness, be it meditation.
Well, I think to answer the other question is, like, I myself have faced a lot of medical discrimination and also employment discrimination, but usually the way I deal with that and encourage my clients to deal with it is like, keep on going, keep on trying. It's their problem, not your problem. And there are like a couple of resources like disability advocates, disability lawyers, and like I think there's like a patient advocacy officer at every hospital you can talk with if you're being treated unfairly, and just like knowing that it's them, not you, that it's the system that's broken, and just they don't stop fighting for your rights. Because as soon as you give up, then that's when people take advantage of you. But standing up for yourself is really important, and knowing that you don't deserve that type of abuse. And this is very key.
Good point, Ryan. I've always had a hard time standing up for myself if I thought there was no malice on the other end. Like, oh, like they have good intentions, or they're not trying to discriminate, even though maybe they don't know that they are.
Well, I've seen doctors do horrible things that almost killed me because of discrimination. So most of the time it's clearly malicious when doctors are discriminating or nurses. It's not harmless like we should tell ourselves.
Thanks for sharing. Did Geneva have a question?
My question was for Mary Jo. I like to practice meditation. I like the idea of it. I have some Eastern beliefs already. But when I practice meditation and try to get into the habit of it, I find deep, deep fatigue. And then I can't feel energized, and then I can't continue. I don't know if it's related to deep sleep issues over many, many years, having to wean off medications. I stick to a strict sleep hygiene schedule, all those good things that we learn, which does work. But I don't find the meditation refreshing. I find it takes me into, whereas I find maybe when I'm not meditating, the distraction keeps me away from how tired I really am, whereas that meditation really reveals that underlying fatigue. So how could I find meditation more energizing other than more fatiguing?
Okay. So there's a couple things here. So when do you meditate it? In what setting is it?
In my home, at different times of the day, preferably trying earlier in the day.
Okay, good. And are you sitting or are you lying down, or what's your position?
Sitting. I never do it lying down. I mean, I used to live in ashrams and stuff when I was younger before I was injured. Like, I had a Hare Krishna background, and sometimes, so I'm familiar with like japa meditation, hours of meditation. But since I'm injured, I can't really get into meditation the way I was before injured either. There's also a difference. Like there's a bit of a block.
And is that due to pain, Geneva?
Pain and fatigue. Somehow when I enter meditation, it brings up fatigue. And I think when I'm not meditating, the distraction of life makes me maybe not aware that fatigue's really going on.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you did mention sleep. So this could be kind of an interesting puzzle to unpack. But right off the top, intuitively, I would say, let's start your meditation in a place that is very non-threatening, i.e., where you don't have to sit up and hold your body up in space. And the way that we deal with falling asleep is you just make your right or your left arm bent at the elbow and hold it up. So for instance, if I'm lying down on my bed, imagine me being flat, then I'm going to put a couple bolsters, or I'm just going to lean my arm against the wall or my headboard, and I'm going to leave that arm up with just the elbow to the hand. You won't fall asleep. Your sympathetic brain won't let you fall asleep when that's happening. And so then you're going to go into your meditation, and you're going to do a focal meditation. Don't allow yourself to kind of just go and try and be quiet and be still. It won't happen. And that's what will also get you frustrated and make you go to fatigue, because you want to avoid it. Your sympathetic brain is like, no way. So the sympathetic brain needs to be relaxed, and it needs to know where it is in space, and it needs to feel safe for meditation or any of this to work. That's the first thing. The second thing is what I said: get yourself in a position where you can lie without any interference and kind of any bodily kind of challenges. I would suggest your knees up and your feet kind of hip distance apart, supported. So you feel really grounded. And then go in and do like a counting backwards from 50 to 1. And you do inhale, right brain, exhale, out the left nostril, inhale, left nostril, right, out the right. Anything that kind of gets your mind focusing on something, a candle, a sound, and don't think that you're going to be able to not turn the mind off. But in this situation, I hesitate to say and guess at this without really being able to work with you personally, but I think you would find that you'll probably get a good 5-minute meditation in where you're not falling asleep. The other piece that you could do here is to use yoga nidra. So rather than meditation, go right over into a very hypnotic, which is what yoga nidra is. Somebody was talking about hypnosis, and that's exactly what we do in yoga nidra. And use that to kind of just train the nervous system and the brain to be okay with being still, but also with being alert and awake, because that's really what's going on in meditation. Does that help in a short answer?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's really helpful. And maybe do we have to retrain those meditation patterns after a spinal cord injury?
Absolutely, you do. You bet. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why, I talk about that a lot when I teach. It's like we really have to rewire that fight or flight system. So it's, really important. Each person has a different kind of fight or flight mechanism and protective thing that the brain will do. And it's good for you to understand yours. You're well on your way because you know what it is, fatigue. So that's kind of the
Okay.
distraction that the brain's using. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, and I guess it's like once we get into a practice, it will get better too, right?
Yeah. I'm going to probably offer, I was thinking about this before, and I talked to Terry about it. I'm going to offer some sort of a mindfulness nature of the mind course coming up in the spring at SCIBC. So maybe we'll see you there and we can talk about it more as a
Yeah,
group there.
thank you. Thank you, Mary Jo. And thank you to the
You're
other
very
speakers.
welcome.
So,
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah.
Ryan, thank you. You said some good things also, Ryan, that are very helpful.
That was a great question and great answer. We do have a question from the group. Maybe we'll throw it to Ryan first. It's for both of you though. Any ideas about not being able to face yourself? Does anybody have any questions? So I think it's kind of more about self-image and stuff like that.
Like what I just like wonder when you face yourself, like what is that referring to? Like believing you have a disability or like your failures? Like I don't quite understand what it means by face yourself.
Well, I know for some of our newer members, it is facing your disability and kind of comparing yourself to pre-injury life and how you were. Maybe it's going out, how you see yourself now compared to where you were
Kind
6
of
months.
like grief. Like oh yeah, I think yeah, so like the grief and loss of like before your disability. Yeah, I guess I can go from that point of view. Yeah, like just self-image, she says. Oh, like yeah, sometimes when like even me, like in the past struggle with self-image and not feeling worthy because of all those messages that you receive through society. But it really starts with like accepting your situation. Is if you just keep fighting it, not want to accept it, you just keep on grieving, you'll never move past it. It is difficult, but it's worth it. So you don't accept, you just get stuck in getting angry at yourself and others. And yeah, it's just, I know it's hard to accept, but that's usually the first step. And just like, yeah, I don't really know else how to answer it though.
A good start, Ryan, and a great question. I think that from my kind of background and even in a little bit of the Western psychology now, it's starting to become, I think, more understood. But I think we need to remember that we're not our thoughts, and we're not the ideas or the things that we often view as the reality. Those are usually stories that other people tell us about ourselves, or stories we've told us about ourselves based on stories other people tell us about ourselves. And in my tradition, our real true self, our essence, is really not even the physical body. It's just your awareness. It's really just this essence of Mary Jo, personality, soul, spirit. And this is the body I travel in. And when I'm, really centered and grounded in my body, mind, spirit is a unified being. And I think that, the idea of self-image is really coming into that very, very limited brain in where we don't have the higher brain working with us, and we don't kind of rest in that place that, oh, you know what, when I was 3 and 4 years old, that was me. And actually, when I close my eyes and do meditation, I'm still the same me. This physical incarnation is different, but actually the truth of it is the essence, what passions you had, what talents you had, what values you have, what personality traits you have are the same. So it's important for us to recognize that there is a real distinction between the physical self, which is our outward expression, and the essence of who we are. And in mindfulness and meditation and any type of Eastern practices, we're really trying to build that understanding and that awareness of that deep essential self up, so that we know that we can rest, kind of lean back into that, and not let that superficial area of ourself have, the unworthy thoughts, or the thoughts of, comparative analysis, or the thoughts of, this is good, I don't like this, this is bad. So that's all part of that, very functional, but very limited binary brain.
That is great. Thank you very much. I was curious, Mary Jo, I think you said at the top of your conversation that you might have handouts or something that people can have. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, I do. I will send that on to you, Terry and Ryan, and you guys can have a little, 3-page handout on all of this stuff that I've talked about.
Okay. Ryan, I did have a request of somebody that was curious about your opening video, and if there was any way of kind of either getting like a transcript or something kind of with that information on it.
Oh yeah, I have the script for it actually. Yeah, so I have a Word document. I don't know if that's the best format, or a PDF, but I do have it written out.
Okay, so for those who might want that, you could reach out to Terry or myself.